starting to feel the strain. Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McCrilly and Jamie and Lane in the Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la. Good evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks. Well, we are back. It's a Tuesday evening, afternoon, and we have a really interesting show for you. Of course, yesterday, we talked all about Paige, our golf influencer, who has some interesting assets that she is using to her benefit. She has been leveraging her assets. And of course, today, we are talking about another person, another individual that has been in the news for scaling one of the world's highest buildings. He's a ropeless freelance climber. We are going to talk all about this in our show this evening. It's a really good show that we're going to have because we're going to be talking about something really important, and we're going to try and understand the motivations behind why someone would be climbing buildings without any safety gear. It seems ludicrous. It seems risky. It seems dangerous. So why would someone do something so ludicrous from the perspective of the common folk? Do you know anyone who likes to scale really tall buildings without safety gear? Have you ever wondered, why do people do such risky, daring things? Well, if you've ever asked yourself those questions, you are going to get some answers from the Bandido in his analysis as to why our mate Arnold, isn't that what he's called? Let me check and see. I did up the thumbnail. Let me check and see. What's his second name? Let me have a look. I'm going to get our little story up here, just so that we can ground ourselves and sort of get an understanding as to what it is that we're going to be talking about on our show. But it's a fascinating thing to look at, folks. Really, really interesting, because when we're trying to understand someone's motivation for something, there's one common thread. Arnold. I was calling him Arnold. He's called Alex Honnold. Where am I getting Arnold from? In my head, even though I've done the thumbnail up for the show, and he's called Alex Honnold, and I've called him Arnold. Well, Alex, I do have to apologize. You have engaged in this activity. You are this free solo climber who doesn't use safety gear. And here's the Bandido, after your heroic feat of scaling this building in Taiwan without any safety gear. Here's you thinking, Alex, that you're going to be world famous and nobody will forget your name. And the Bandido comes on to his show. And in the first few minutes, he calls you Arnold instead of Alex. Folks, there's nothing more for the Bandido to say. But anyway, it's going to be a good show. And we're going to get into this. We're going to try and break down Alex's motivation. Alex Honnold. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it correctly. But we're going to break down his motivation. But before we do that, folks, I will remind you to like the stream. If you are joining us live, get into the live chat. We will deal with all of the live chats at the end of the show. Of course, if you are watching our show, after the live event has concluded, get down into the comments section. Let me know what you think about what it is that we will be talking about. As I've said, get into that live chat, comment, leave your insights. We will get to all of those at the end of the show. And then finally, folks, if you like what we do here at Bandido Talks, if you find it interesting, insightful, valuable, or useful in some way, then I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. We are live on YouTube, we are live on Rumble. So I would encourage you to subscribe here on YouTube, head over to Rumble, use the little scrolling black banner below to get all the details as to how you can direct yourself over to Rumble. Bandido Talks on Rumble, Bandido Talks on YouTube. We are doing live shows every Monday to Thursday here on YouTube at 4 p.m. And then after this show, we go over to Rumble at 6 p.m. and do our show over there as well. So lots of live content for you folks to get your teeth into. So feel free to subscribe. And anyway, with all of that out of the road, folks, let us get into this evening's show. Let's throw ourselves into this. We aren't talking about Arnold. There's no Arnolds here. The Bandido called our person in question Arnold. But it's actually Alex. Now what we're going to do, folks, is just ground ourselves, because some of you may not be familiar with what has actually happened with respect to this story. So I'm going to read you out a little summary by AI, just summarizing in a few sentences what exactly has happened. Then we're going to get our teeth into this and try and break all of this down. So let me get my little summary up here. On Grok. Grok-a-doodle-doo. Let's see what Grok has to say when summarizing this story. All right. So here's a summary of our mate Alex. It goes as follows. Renowned free solo climber Alex Honnold has once again stunned the world by successfully completing a ropeless ascent of Taipei 101, one of the tallest skyscrapers on Earth, in a live-streamed event on Netflix. The 32-year-old, we've got another 32-year-old, Paige was 32, we were talking about her yesterday. Arnold, not Arnold, Alex, why do I keep saying Arnold? I think this is going to happen a lot throughout our show. Alex. So Alex, the 32-year-old. Is he 32 or a 32 story? What age is he? Maybe he's not 32. Let me check this up. Is Grok right here? Let me see. He doesn't look 32. Alex Honnold, American rock climber. He's 40 years of age. What is Grok talking about? So Grok says he's 32. He's actually 40. So we'll have to perhaps just say that Grok has maybe it's made a little blunder there. But anyway, the 40-year-old climbed the 32-story, 508-meter, 160 or 1,667-foot tower in Taiwan's capital without ropes, harnesses, or any safety equipment in approximately 92 minutes on January the 25th, 2026, marking the first known free solo of the iconic bamboo-inspired structure. Cheers erupted from the crowds below, and millions watched globally as Honnold reached the summit, where he simply described the feat as, quote, sick, while raising his arms in triumph. The climb, originally scheduled earlier but delayed by wet weather, drew widespread awe for his focus, skill, and preparation, though it also sparked ethical discussions about the risks involved. Honnold's latest boundary-pushing achievement builds on his legendary El Capitan free solo documented in Oscar-winning film Free Solo, further cementing his status as one of the greatest climbers in history. All right, so we'll excuse Grok for its little blunder with respect to the age. Now, let me get back on my main screen. Okay, so Alex Honnold. He does this extremely daring, risky thing. You can hear from me reading out the article. What is it that he's done? He has climbed a free solo climb without harnesses, safety equipment, or any of that. He has climbed the 11th highest building in the world, a skyscraper, without any safety equipment. Now you might be thinking, why? Why would someone do this? Why would someone take such a risk, live stream it to the world? And even aside from this particular achievement that Alex has partaken in, he has also done lots of other risky climbs. He's a free solo climber. Apparently he did some other legendary climb as well. So when we have someone like Alex doing these incredibly risky, daring things, we have to ask the logical question, which is why? Why would he do this? Why would anybody take such risk? The answer is really simple, folks. The answer is simple, and then we are going to draw this out. We're going to explain why. But I'm going to give you the simple answer as to why Alex Honnold did this. And the reason why is going to be nicely summarized in one word. And that word is status. Status. People don't like this word. People think it's a dirty word. We've talked about it before on the show multiple times. If you say to someone, oh yeah, the reason why you want to become a CEO of a business is because you want to increase your status. Or the reason why you play the guitar is because you want to increase your status. Or the reason why you do any sort of a display is because you want to increase your status. People will say, no, I don't do it for status. I don't do it for status. I do it for the love of the activity. I don't do it for status. I don't want to do anything like that. I'm not a status seeker. People will get very defensive. People will want to convince you that they never do anything for status. Because status is a dirty word. It's a word that makes it sound as if you're very self-indulgent. You're thinking about how you can make yourself look wonderful in the eyes of other people. And people don't like to give off that impression. Certainly here in Ireland, people are very touchy around the word status. And people are super touchy about the idea of someone thinking that they are doing something to increase their status. But you see, folks, Before there was money, before there was modern day banking, and all of this, before there was gold, the biggest currency that existed in a human tribe was status. That was the biggest currency that anybody could increase. It's the biggest thing. It was the most important thing for ancestral humans who lived in a tribe, in a village of 30 or 40 people. The currency of that time was not dollars, not pounds, not euro, not gold, not any of that. It was status. An easy argument could be made that that was the most important currency for our ancestors. Status. Why? Why is status so important? Status is so important because from an ancestral perspective, if you have more status in the village or in the tribe, then that means the people who live in your tribe deem you as more valuable. And the more valuable you are, the more insurance you have when you're in the tribe. If it's a competition between you and someone else, if you have more status than somebody else in your tribe, and it comes down to saving your life or somebody else's life, and a decision has to be made, whose life are we going to save? The person who has the most status, in other words, the person who offers the most value and potential value to the tribe going into the future, that is the person whose life will be saved. Because the more status you have, that means the more value you offer. And the more value you offer, the more insurance you have in the tribe. And if you have more insurance, that means your probability of surviving in the harsh environment of nature increases significantly. And if you are surviving longer than your competitors, that means you have an increased probability of passing on your genes to the next generation. The biological purpose of life. That is why status is so important. And I know you and I live in the modern environment, and it's easy to forget our ancestral roots, but you have the same psychology as your ancestors. Your psychology developed back in the Stone Age, back in an ancestral environment. And so for you, in the modern environment, status is just as important to you as it was to your ancestors. And anybody that tries to convince you that they don't care about status, they are lying. They are trying to come across as falsely humble. In other words, they're full of shit. Anyone who tries to convince you that they don't care about status is a liar and a bullshitter. And they are trying to deceive you for some reason. Every human being is extremely attentive to their status gain and their status loss and their current level of status that they hold within their own friendship circles, the status that they hold with their romantic partner or partners, the status that they hold with their business people, with the people that they are trading with, the status that they hold with their family. People are very aware of how much status they have within their own group. Whether that's romantically, in terms of friendship, in terms of trade and business, or in terms of family. Status is extremely important. And back in our ancestral environment, it was arguably the most important currency that any ancestral human had. Now, I understand in the modern age we have all of this extraordinary wealth. We have money, we have gold, we have Bitcoin, we have properties, we have all of this. Stocks. All of these things that we would throw in under the umbrella of wealth. If you have lots of dollars, pounds, or euro, if you have lots of properties, if you have lots of gold, if you have lots of valuable stock, if you have lots of Bitcoin or crypto that's valuable, you have what we call wealth. But back in a time when none of those things existed, the quote wealth, or the currency of our ancestors, was status. And it's exactly the same now. Why do you think people acquire wealth, folks? Why do you think people want lots of money, want lots of properties, want Bitcoin, want crypto, want all of this wealth? Why do you think people want to be wealthy? Sure, it makes your existence better. But why does it make your existence better? Because if you are observed through the eyes of other people as having a lot of resources, a lot of wealth, people translate that into you being a high status individual. If you are someone who has an extraordinary means for acquiring and defending resources, and you have a lot of wealth, that in the equation of life equals a high status individual. And what happens when someone is perceived as being high status? They are perceived as having more value to offer to the world. And what happens when you are perceived as having more value to offer to the world? You have more insurance. There are more people around you that are interested in you continuing to live because you have a lot of value to offer to them. And so you not being here is of importance to them. Now, I know you might say, oh, well, some people might want to kill other people who are wealthy so they can inherit their wealth. Yes, I understand that. That's a different motivation. We can talk about that another time. But the point is, when you are wealthy, you are perceived as higher status than someone who is not as wealthy. And when you are high status, you are determined as being a more valuable human. And when you are more valuable, more people want to associate with you. And when more people want to associate with you, by default, you have more insurance in this life. So, why am I saying all this? Why am I laying this out? Why am I laying out why status is so important? Because, to go back to our mate Alex, not Arnold. Where did Arnold come from? I'm still thinking, why did I say Arnold? Maybe it's to do with merging his first and second name. Alex Honnold. Arnold. Sorry, Alex. So anyway, here we have Alex, this solo rock climber who doesn't use safety gear, who doesn't use a harness. He just scales these skyscrapers. It's very daring. It's very risky. Why does Alex do this? Why does anybody do anything risky or daring? Let me tell you why, and let's cut through the crap here. Because people are going to give a whole bunch of bogus reasons as to why Alex did this. Oh, he just loves the activity of climbing. That's why he did it. He's passionate about rock climbing. I wonder why he's passionate about it. Let's go a step further. So for those people who try to make the argument, he only did it because he's passionate about it. He loves climbing, he loves rock climbing, he loves climbing skyscrapers. Okay, why is he passionate about it? Well, he's passionate because he's good at it. Okay, so he's good at something which makes him passionate. Why do you think he wants to do this? Why do you think he decided that my life is going to be about scaling skyscrapers and really high structures without safety gear? Status. That is the answer. Because, let me tell you something interesting, folks. How much status does somebody get for going into an office and doing work in a little cubicle in the office, tapping their fingers off a keyboard? How much status do you acquire on the global stage? How much status do you acquire within your community for going into a cubicle with some big conglomerate business, some big outfit, some big financial outfit, some big accounting outfit, some big legal outfit? You go into a cubicle and you type on your laptop. How much status do you get for that? How much admiration do you extract from the population for going into your cubicle and typing on your laptop? Have a think about that. And then compare it to what Alex has just done. Alex has just went out and scaled a skyscraper with no harness, with no safety gear, putting his life on the line. It has been streamed live on Netflix. Millions of people will have watched him during the stream, and millions more will watch the footage afterwards, and millions more will read about it in the newspapers, online, on social media and elsewhere. What is happening here, folks? Well, you see, when you play life safe, when you do very comfortable, non-risky activities in life, there's a trade-off. There's a trade-off with everything, folks. And there's always a cost-benefit analysis to be run on everything that you do and everything that I do. So if you go into your cubicle because you work with some legal firm or some accounting firm and you're a bean counter, and you go into your little cubicle and you type on your laptop and nobody knows who you are, you're just a bean counter with no name. You're an anonymous individual. Nobody knows you beyond your close friends, family, and work colleagues. Nobody knows who you are globally. You are insignificant in that sense. When you do something like that, let me try and explain the cost-benefit analysis of going into a cubicle for some big financial firm and being a bean counter. Here's the cost-benefit analysis. When you are a bean counter in your cubicle, it is not risky. You drive to work, you walk to work. You go into this nice air-conditioned or heated building, you sit on a comfortable chair, and you do something that isn't unique. You do something that millions of other people can also do. And so there is nothing unique about you. There's nothing interesting about your skill set. There's nothing extraordinary or marvelous about what it is that you are doing. You are doing an activity that millions, arguably billions of other people do, and therefore there's no USP, there's no unique selling point to what it is that you are doing. Why? Because you're doing a very comfortable, safe, non-risky activity that lots of people across the planet can also do. So what's the cost-benefit analysis of doing this? Well, the benefit is you get paid, you're in a very comfortable environment, you're safe, the type of work that you're doing isn't really that strenuous, it's pretty easy, it's well within your tolerance of capabilities, and so as a result, it's very comfortable. There's no major risk, and you get paid some money at the end of the day. So that's the benefit. What's the cost of being a bean counter in a cubicle for some big financial or accounting firm? Well, the cost is, because you are playing life so safe, because there is literally pretty much zero risk with your occupation, and because your occupation is carried out by millions and perhaps billions of other people, it's not really that interesting or unique. And so as a result, the cost of being a bean counter is that you don't get a lot of status for what it is that you are doing. Sure, you get comfort, you get paid, you're in a safe environment, it's predictable. So those are all benefits, we could argue. But the cost of doing this is, because you're playing it so safe and because you're doing something that lots of other people do, it doesn't make you unique. As a result, you don't really increase your status at all. Your status just stays where it is. And in fact, in the eyes of some people, you might actually be losing status. Some people might look at you and say, fuck me, that person's a bean counter. What are they actually doing for society? They go into their little cubicle, they work for some big global financial firm that's fucking over the economy and stealing a whole bunch of money, one could argue. What are they actually doing? So you might actually lose status. Forget about just breaking even or increasing your status. You might actually lose status with certain people in the population because people might look at your job and say, what a worthless job. What is this person doing? They just type on the keyboard. They facilitate the existence of some big financial empire of some rich dude. They're not really helping the community. They're in their cubicle, isolated. And what are they really doing? Shuffling papers around and typing on their keyboard. So an argument could actually be made that you're even losing status in the eyes of some people doing a job like that. So that's the cost benefit for being a bean counter in a cubicle for some big financial, accounting or legal firm. Now let's compare this to Alex Honnold, our freelance solo rock climber who doesn't use any safety gear or harness when he is ascending up a skyscraper. How many people do you know have climbed the 11th tallest building in the world out in Taiwan that was streamed to millions of people on Netflix? How many people do you know has an occupation as a rock climber or as a skyscraper climber who doesn't use any safety gear? Do you know many people like that in your life who engage in such a unique, risky, daring, unpredictable kind of work? How many people do you know like that? And let's now run the cost-benefit analysis from the perspective of I was about to say Arnold again, from Alex. Let's have a look and see how it compares to our bean counter in the cubicle of some big financial firm. So Alex, he climbs skyscrapers without safety gear. Let's have a look at the cost benefit. Well, the cost, folks, is pretty obvious. The cost benefit analysis. Let's have a look at the cost of what Alex is doing. He's climbing a very tall structure without safety gear. What could go wrong? Death. That's the cost of what Alex is doing, and people like Alex. The cost is the greatest cost that any of us could incur. Death, or some sort of disabling injury. That's the cost for Alex whenever he goes to work in the morning. Death. Our bean counter who goes into the cubicle, comfortable, safe, predictable. But for Alex, it's very uncomfortable, risky, daring, dangerous, and unpredictable. There's nothing safe about it. And it's so unsafe that the probability of death or serious injury is it's incredibly higher. It's so much higher than some bean counter in a cubicle. So that's the cost of what Alex is doing. What's the benefit? Why is Alex even doing this? The big benefit that Alex gets from doing this, from climbing this skyscraper in Taiwan, this extremely high structure, the 11th highest building on the planet. What's the benefit of him scaling this structure without safety gear? If he succeeds, the benefit is he is going to accumulate an enormous amount of status globally. Because Alex isn't just going to gain status from the people who are literally there in Taiwan watching him. No, this was streamed on Netflix. Everybody around the world, the Bandido knows about this. Even if he does keep getting his name wrong, but the Bandido knows about what he did. This is a global story that transcends languages. Stories are being written in all sorts of different languages about what Alex has done. What is the end result of all of this, folks? What is the end result of doing something with such a high cost, but coming out on the other side victorious? What's the big benefit? Status. Alex Honnold's status just went from here to here. It's out of the lens of the camera over the last few days. Because on the global stage, Alex did something so unique, so interesting, so out there, so unusual, so risky, so daring, so dangerous. The cost of Alex not pulling this off was the greatest cost of all: death. And what happens, folks, when you engage in risky, daring, very costly behaviors? Well, let me explain what happens. When the cost of you doing something is very high, that means if you are able to overcome the odds and you're able to come out victorious in this activity, which has this extremely high cost for failure, lying on the other side of this is an enormous amount of status. And what did I say earlier about status, folks? This is why it's important that you understand the absolute critical nature of status in human affairs. Status. The more status you have, the more valuable you are perceived as a human. And the more valuable that you are perceived, the more insurance you have in this life. Which makes your existence all the more remarkable. And it gives you the best probability of living out the rest of your existence and passing on your genes to future offspring. That's the biological way that we could look at it, certainly through the perspective of our ancestors. But being so high in status, being an individual with so much status, means you have so much perceived value in the eyes of the rest of humanity. And when you have so much value, or when humanity perceives that you have so much value, people want to associate with you. People want your autograph. People want to be your friend, to be your business partner. You get offers. You get financial propositions. Things start to happen in life when you are high status and you have a lot of perceived value in the eyes of humanity. And that is what was lying on the other side of this for Alex Honnold. Whenever you engage, and this is the thing, folks, I'm not saying that we should all be out there climbing skyscrapers. But what you need to realize is if you are looking at life and wondering, why is it that Alex Honnold did this? And why is it that people are sort of losing their minds over Alex completing this challenge? If you're asking yourself these questions, well, it actually draws a nice link to our show yesterday. Think of it like this, folks. We are all trying to put our best foot forward in life. We are trying to give the best version of ourselves. We want to give the most representative version of ourselves in life because we want people to perceive us as well as possible. In other words, we want people to perceive the value in us because if people are perceiving us as high value, that means we are high status. The more status that we have, the more status chips that we have in the eyes of other people, the better it is for us. Because people want to associate with other high status people, because there's a lot of value to be had through associations with high status individuals. Now, what's really important to realize here, folks, is when you play life safe, if you go to your cubicle and you engage in your bean counting activities, that's fine. But please don't be living under the delusion that you should be getting a whole bunch of status for doing something that is not unique, it's not daring, it's not something that only you are able to do. There are lots of other people in the world that can do that mundane activity. Please don't be living in the land of the delusional, whereby you think, or you're wondering why I'm not perceived as more valuable among the general population. People who do extraordinary things are going to get extraordinary benefits from accomplishing extraordinary things, because extraordinary things normally have a very high cost for failure. That's why we call them extraordinary. When someone does something extraordinary, what do we mean by that? Why do we use the word extraordinary? We use the word extraordinary because lying in it, in the activity itself, the extraordinary accomplishment, we say that because there's an implicit understanding that when someone does something incredible, there must have been an incredibly high potential cost for failure if they didn't pull it off. That's why we say it's extraordinary. And if someone is able to essentially beat the odds, overcome this high probability of failure, and not only a high probability of failure, but a very serious consequence to failure, like with Alex, death. If Alex falls off that building, he's dead, or he's very badly injured. So when there's a very high cost to doing something, there's a very big trade-off in the positive lying on the other side if the person can actually defeat the odds and accomplish what it is that they're looking to accomplish. And why is it that people who do extraordinary things and manage to not lose or succumb to the failure and the consequences of failure, why are these people generating so much status and all the benefits that come with increased status? Why is it that we allocate status to people who do extraordinary things and manage to overcome the odds and the serious consequences of failure? Here's the reason why. When you are going to do an extraordinary thing, we know that there's a big cost, potentially, to failure. So when somebody achieves the extraordinary thing, what this tells us about them is that they must be an extraordinary human. In other words, this person must be so marvelous, they must have such incredible genes, such incredible genetics, such an incredible ability to overcome adversity. They are so great that they must be so valuable to humanity. They have such great potential to be valuable to humanity. In other words, the accomplishment of the extraordinary thing tells us and gives us evidence that someone is far beyond the mean or average of humanity. And when other humans perceive that someone is far above the mean or average of human capability, we naturally allocate increased status to those people, and we automatically, it's an instinctive thing, we naturally place them higher in the dominance hierarchy of life compared to the mean or average. And if someone is further up the hierarchy of status in life, we perceive those people as being more valuable. And more valuable people, folks, have access to more opportunity in life. And when you have access to more opportunity, you have access to more insurance. And you have access to the possibility of living a marvelous existence. You have access to resources. And so here is the big lesson from all of this. Alex Honnold, what you need to realize is that one of the most important things in life, folks, is status. You are a human. You have human psychology. You live and interact and talk with other humans. All humans are status-seeking machines. We all want to increase our status relative to where it is right now. All of us do. And anybody who tries to deceive you into the notion that status isn't important is either a dipshit or they are being deliberately deceptive. Everybody wants to increase their status as much as possible. Why? The more status that we all have, the more valuable we are in the eyes of other people, the more perceived value that we have through the eyes of humanity. And if humanity deems us to be more valuable, think of it in the ancestral sense, folks. When you live in an ancestral environment, if you are deemed more valuable or an extremely high value individual within your tribe, the tribe is going to want to offer you insurance because you are able to offer an enormous amount of value to the tribe as a whole, and people are able to benefit from your skills and abilities and talents. And so as a result, more people will want to associate with you, and more people will want to ensure that you have the insurance and you continue to have the gift of life. People will want to associate with you when you have a higher value, a higher perceived value in their eyes. That high perceived value comes from increased status. And so when we look at Alex, our solo freelance rock climber, why would he do something so daring and risky and essentially put his life in danger? The cost of Alex, the cost-benefit analysis, remember folks, we've talked about the cost-benefit analysis. The cost of Alex failing in his endeavor to scale this building in Taiwan, the cost was the most enormous cost that any of us could incur. Death. And so as a result, everybody who watched and read about what Alex was doing, they were keenly aware that if this man fails or makes a mistake, he is going to lose the gift of life, most likely. And so the cost is enormous. And so people then will be thinking, well, if this man, Alex Honnold, pulls this off, then that is telling us something very interesting about Alex Honnold. It's telling us something incredibly interesting about his talents, his abilities, his capabilities, and his genetics. It's telling us that he is such an incredible, extraordinary human that has so much potential value to offer to humanity. If he is able to overcome the odds here, the very sticky odds of this cost of death, and he's able to ascend this skyscraper and actually be victorious in his attempt to complete what it is that he's looking to do, that gives the rest of humanity evidence as to how incredibly brilliant a human Alex Honnold is at what it is that he does. And so as a result, humanity sees this incredible effort, this incredible achievement, and naturally, Alex Honnold's status among the global population increases because he was able to accomplish something extraordinary and unique that very few people on the planet could do. Because to do what Alex Honnold did, you need an extraordinary skill set, an extraordinary amount of effort and energy investment in literally honing this activity, and extraordinary genetics. In other words, it's broadcasting the gene quality of Alex Honnold. And when other humans sniff, when they sniff like a dog, when they can sniff that someone is high status and they have a lot of value to offer, people naturally allocate them higher, far above the mean or average in the hierarchy of life. And Alex Honnold has just went extraordinarily up. He has increased significantly his status and his position within the global hierarchy of important, valuable people. And so as a result, what can we learn from this? Folks, nobody's saying that we need to go and climb a skyscraper. But if you want to figure out, to try and suss out how it is that you can increase your status, it's not that you need to go and climb a skyscraper without safety gear. What you need to be asking yourself is, how can I be perceived as being more valuable in the eyes of other people? There are lots of ways to increase your value and thus your status in this life. You don't need to do something quite as risky as Alex Honnold. Now, obviously, folks, the more risky and daring and dangerous the activity, the greater the payoff. You're going to get even more status when you do something incredibly risky and daring. That is true. But that doesn't mean that we need to put our life in the same danger as Alex Honnold. All we need to do, folks, and this is the big lesson from all of this, all that we need to do is figure out how it is that we can offer the most value to the world given the skills, talents and abilities and genetic limitations and strengths that we all have. It goes back to our episode yesterday with Paige Sporanic. I think that's what she's called. Paige Sporanic. Something like that. We're just going to call her Paige. So it's the same with Paige yesterday. Paige has big tits. She's got a nice hole. She's got a good figure. She's not fat and overweight. She's got a really pretty face. She's got nice hair. She's sexually attractive. And so as a result, Paige is leveraging all of these assets that she has, these physical assets that are deemed valuable in the eyes of other women and men as well. And so what is Paige doing? Paige is finding a way to offer value to the world. Think of it what you want. But she's offering value. People are interested in her. Her story, what it is she does. She was a professional golfer. It's the same with Alex. Notice, though, that they have something in common. They are doing things that are unique and difficult to do. That's the common thread. When you do something unique and difficult that most other people can't do, you are naturally going to have greater access to a status increase in your own existence. You're going to be able to increase your value to a greater degree because the thing that it is that you are offering, most people can't offer it, but you can. And so that's what we want to realize here, folks. We want to find our niche in this life. Whatever that niche is. For Paige, it's about putting on clothes, essentially, and taking nice pictures of herself that really enhance her figure. Putting on makeup, doing her hair, all of that stuff. For Alex Honnold, it's about scaling skyscrapers. But what we want to do, folks, is we want to figure out how is it that we can offer something unique and valuable that sort of exploits a niche in the market. Because, folks, if you do mundane things, boring things, safe things, comfortable things that everybody else on the planet is doing, please don't be expecting your status to move from its current baseline. In fact, depending on the type of job you're doing, it's quite possible that some people may view you as lower status. You might lose status, as I said earlier, if you're a real through and through bean counter for some big financial empire. So this is what we're trying to do, folks. We want to gain status. Don't be afraid to say it. Wear it loud and proud. People are afraid. People want to come across as humble and modest. I'm not humble and modest. I have no problem telling you that I'm a status-seeking machine. Of course I am. Why do I want status? I want status because people are going to perceive me as more valuable. When I'm perceived as being more valuable, I get more opportunities in life and I have more overall insurance in my life that can potentially come from the opportunities. Of course I'm a status seeker. And I have no problem admitting it. But if you are living in this world where you're basically saying to yourself, oh no, I don't want status. No, I'm not a status seeker. I just do things for the love of life. You dummy. You shouldn't be denying the bleeding obvious. There's nothing wrong with wanting more status. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be perceived as being more valuable to other people. There's nothing wrong with trying to better yourself, become ultra competent, become excellent, have individual excellence. There's nothing wrong with any of this. This is perfectly fine. The world is competitive, folks. Ding, ding, ding! Reality check, the world is competitive. You are competing against other people who are keenly aware of how important it is that they are offering value, being perceived as offering value, and increasing their status, and therefore increasing their position within the status hierarchy, in their own community, or in the case of Alex Honnold, globally. There's nothing wrong with that, folks. And you need to understand how it is that you acquire more status. For you to acquire more status, you need to be doing things that are unique. You need to be exploiting a niche in the world that not very many people are able to exploit. And that doesn't mean stripping off to your underwear and getting on to OnlyFans, or climbing a skyscraper, or getting into a cage with a lion or a gorilla or a tiger. You don't need to do that, folks. You don't need to be an idiot. And I'm not saying Alex is an idiot. But if you don't have Alex Honnold's skill and you haven't dedicated the enormous amount of time and energy to become as competent as he is at scaling skyscrapers and climbing these big tall structures without safety gear, if you haven't invested the time and energy into developing and honing your craft like Alex has, don't be a fucking wally and start climbing buildings. Oh, because the Bandido said that I need to do extraordinary risky things, so I'm going to go and climb my local skyscraper like a dummy. That is not the way to interpret what it is that I'm saying. All of us have genetic strengths and limitations. All of us have skills, talents, and abilities that we've either developed or we could develop. And what you want to do is, you want to think, okay, I have these skills and I have this genetic hand that I've been dealt. How is it that I can exploit a certain niche in the market that not a lot of people are exploiting? And in that way, I can then offer more value because I'm doing something unique that not a lot of people can do. And you want to then work with what you have. I understand that not everyone is created equally. Some people are smarter than others. Some people have an IQ of 80 or 90. Some people have an IQ of 130 or 140. I understand that everybody has their own strengths and limitations. And what I'm saying is, you need to find your niche in the market. Find your niche. How is it that you, with your genetic hand and your skills and abilities, how is it that you can exploit something that is as unique and interesting as possible? Because that's where you're going to get the greatest payoff. When you're able to do something that not a lot of people can do. Then it becomes a question of how much effort do you want to put into the process of honing your craft. That's a separate discussion for a different day. But folks, there's nothing wrong with wanting to increase your status. And that's exactly what Alex Honnold has done here. That's why he did this. Why? Why do something so risky and dangerous? Because Alex Honnold has ran the cost-benefit analysis. He knows what he's capable of and what he isn't capable of. And he knew that he could pull this off. He knew that the cost of failure was absolutely enormous. If he fails and makes a mistake, he's probably dead. But he also knows that he's able to pull it off. He has the capacity to pull this off. He did it in 92 minutes. And what did he do? He pulled it off. And Alex Honnold would have been very aware of the fact, maybe unconsciously aware, maybe not consciously, but unconsciously, he would have been aware that the trade-off here, on the other side of this, if he can manage to escape the enormous cost of death, then he knows on the other side there is an enormous pot of status waiting for him. That was his motivation for doing this. It was status-driven. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, as I've said, I will repeat myself again. This doesn't mean that you, Mr. Dummy, listening to this, if you're a dummy, you'll be thinking, oh, well, I have to go do risky, daring things that put my life in danger. No, that is you being a dummy. You don't have to go and do something that deliberately or willingly puts your life in danger. That is stupid. Alex Honnold has a very unique skill set. He's extremely competent at climbing without a harness or safety gear. There's no point in you looking at him and saying, I'm going to become a rock climber and climb the same building in a year's time, having only been practicing for 12 months. That is completely misunderstanding what I'm saying. What I am saying, folks, is what you want to try and do is, with whatever abilities you have, genetic abilities or abilities that you've developed in this life, you want to do your absolute best to try and be as unique as possible, to try and do something that is exploiting a specific niche in the market that not a lot of people are exploiting, because that's where the greatest bang for your buck is going to come from in terms of offering value. Once you're able to offer value in some significant way, you will be perceived as a high-value individual and your status is going to increase. And as your status continues to increase, as you continue to move up the status hierarchy, you're going to gain access to more opportunities. Your life will become more insured. More people will want to associate with you. Good things will likely come out of these opportunities. And whether or not, folks, given your own genetic gifts and your own abilities that you've developed in this life, not everyone is able to exploit a unique thing in the market, a unique niche in the market. Not everybody's able to do it. But that shouldn't stop you from trying. And that's the big thing here. You should at least be trying. Try your best. Maybe you'll be able to find a niche in the market and be able to exploit it by doing something unique. Maybe you won't. It doesn't mean you have to do dangerous or risky things that put your life in danger. It just means that you have to understand that doing the mundane, boring things that lots of people on the planet can do ain't going to give you a whole bunch of status. And you have to be happy with that trade-off. If you want to be a bean counter or do some mundane task, that's fine. If you're happy with that, good enough for you. But you have to understand the cost-benefit analysis of doing a mundane thing that isn't unique or interesting. And if you're happy with the trade-off, then fine, that's okay. Extraordinary things require extraordinary effort. And to acquire more and more status and to be able to offer more and more value to the world requires a shit ton of work, folks, and effort, and study and practical implementation of your theory that you're learning. And so what I'm trying to say here is, pursuing status isn't a problem per se. It doesn't mean you have to put your life in danger. It just means that the more status and value, folks, you're able to offer to the world, the more value you can offer, the higher status you are within your community, within your city, within your town, perhaps globally, on the internet, whatever it is. The more high status you are, when you have more status, that means you have more value to offer in the eyes of other people. That's not a bad thing, folks. Don't let anybody tell you that that's a bad thing. Being valuable is a good thing. Having more status is a good thing. Of course, people can lose the run of themselves. People can be so hell-bent on acquiring more status that, yeah, they do stupid, risky things that end up injuring them or killing them. That's true. We don't want to do that. As I've already said, you want to engage in a very self-reflective process here, a critical analysis of you. What are your genetic gifts that you can exploit? What are the current talents and abilities that you have that you can also exploit? How can you merge these together, folks? And if you feel, so be it. At least you tried. But you shouldn't let some idiot tell you that the pursuit of status and value is a bad thing. No, it isn't. It's inherent to human psychology. It was arguably the first currency that existed within a human village or tribe. Excuse me. And so it's not inherently a bad thing. Of course, people can take it too far and do stupid things in the name or in the intent or with the ambition of acquiring status. Nobody needs to be stupid here. Alex, our mate Alex, let's just say, he understands his own gifts and abilities. And he knew that it was within his capacity to scale this skyscraper. Good for him. It was very risky, very daring. But folks, remember, he has the skill set and the competency to potentially offset the risk of the activity and the potential cost of failure. If you don't have that skill set, then you shouldn't be climbing skyscrapers. And you shouldn't be doing things that are risky if you don't have the skills and the genetic talents to do them. You need to engage. You have to engage in a process of improvement and honing your craft. And at the same time, you have to analyze, what are my genetic abilities? What are my current talents? And then exploit them. Look at the market. Look at your town. Look at your community. Look at your city. Look at the internet. Analyze. Critically analyze, folks. What can I offer that's of value? Because the more value I can offer, the higher my status will climb. And the higher my status climbs, the more perceived value I will start to generate. And if people start to see me as a high value individual, I start to get more opportunities to enhance my existence and optimize my existence. This is why you shouldn't be ashamed of admitting that you are in the pursuit of offering value and increasing your status. Nothing wrong with that, folks. So anyway, understand your genetic talents, understand your current talents. Put them together, look at the market, look at humanity, look at where you live, look at the online space, and think to yourself, what is it that I can offer to the world? What niche can I exploit? How can I stand out? How can I be unique? How can I be of service and value to other people in some unique way, offering humanity something that not a lot of other people are offering it at the moment? Try, folks. Just try it. We are all going to fail. We'll all have successes at times. We'll all have failures at times. But just try. Try to get the most out of yourself and don't just fall into the trap of being comfortable. Don't just do comfortable things, safe things that everybody else does. That doesn't mean you put yourself in risk or in danger. It just means that you try to get the most out of yourself. You dare to be great. And when I say dare to be great, what I mean is you dare to extract all of the greatness that resides in your abilities and your genetics. Get the most out of what it is that you have in this world. Look at the niches in the market and try to offer value to people and make sure that you're not being a dipshit. Make sure that you're leveraging your assets and your skills. That's what Alex has done. That's what Paige is doing. And if you play life safe, folks, the unfortunate thing is, if you're continuing to go into your big financial empire building, some big financial institution, if you continue to go in there, into your cubicle to be a bean counter, and you know that you could have done more with your life, then you know what you'll be saddled with? Regret. And you don't want to be in a position where you are saddled with regret and guilt at the fact that you didn't try to maximize your own gifts and abilities. And just give it a go. So anyway, that is our mate Alex Honnold. I'm only joking. Alex, of course. Alex Honnold. What an individual, huh? Quite remarkable, really, what he has done. And full credit to him. He deserves all the status that he is accumulating at the moment. A remarkable achievement. We have to congratulate him and say, kudos to him. There was an extremely high cost for failure. He managed to overcome the odds and he accomplished something unique and remarkable. He deserves all the status that he gets, and he deserves to move up the hierarchy, and he deserves all the opportunities that come his direction. So anyway, with all of that said, folks, I think it's time to go to the live chat. Let's see if we've got anybody in the live chat. We had a bagel yesterday. The bagels, folks. Let's have a look and see. Let me get this set up. Are we going to have a bagel today as well? Now, YouTube Studio is again moving slowly. Lord Jesus, it's moving slowly. Again, we have this storm at the moment. It's very windy outside, very wet. Let me have a look here and see if there's anybody in the live chat. The computer is moving extremely slowly. Let's have a look and see. And it looks like we have one live chat. Have I got that right? It looks like there's one live chat. I think we've been spurred the bagel. Let me get this set up and make sure. I've got Alex's name wrong, calling him Arnold. I hope I haven't got this wrong. It looks like I haven't. I think we do have one live chat. Who's it from? It's from Quiz22. Quiz is in the live chat. Let's see what Quiz is saying. He says the following. The Bandido becoming a streaming machine. Can't stop, won't stop. Well, Quiz, this is the thing. The man can't talk the talk and not walk the walk. I said I was going to get this project off and running. If the Bandido is going to do something, he's going to put his 100% effort into the project. And wherever the project goes, whether it's a success or a failure, there will be no stone left unturned. So if we're going to do this, we are going to give our absolute best. So you are correct. A streaming machine, that argument could be made. We will be live here, of course, on YouTube, Monday to Thursday at 4 p.m. Then we head over to Rumble, Monday to Thursday at 6 p.m. So I suppose, what is that? That's 8 live streams a week. Does that make the Bandido a machine? Every live stream tends to last for, what? An hour and a half? Something like that? Maybe the Bandido is becoming a streaming machine. Perhaps he is. But he's going to give us all to the project. We'll see where it takes us. We'll try to extract lessons, extract value. Not be ashamed of wanting to increase our status and standing in the world. To try and be as valuable as we can be to other people. So perhaps, yes, the Bandido's becoming a streaming machine. We have to just do our best, folks. With whatever time we have, with whatever energy we have during our waking hours, we give our best. The Bandido's giving his best when he comes on to Bandido Talks. And then we let the chips fall where the chips are going to fall. How successful will we be? It's hard to tell. How much success will we have? It's hard to tell. But we'll engage with the process and enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. So perhaps, yes, quizzed. Can't stop, won't stop. No one's going to do the work for us, folks. We have to put the shoulder to the wheel and run the experiments fairly. Get the feedback in and let feedback be the guiding light. That's the plan. So anyway, that seems to be our only live chat from Quiz 22. Let me do one more check here. Make sure I haven't missed anyone. That seems to be everything, folks. And so that draws our show to a close. Another really good show again. Status, folks. All about status. Especially if you're a male and you want to climb the dominance hierarchy. Status is the currency. It's arguably the most important currency. But a really good show, folks. I would encourage you again to like the stream if you enjoyed it. Get down into the comments. Let me know what you thought about everything that we talked about. Agree or disagree. Let me have it down there in the comments. Be unfiltered, but please abide by YouTube's community guidelines, of course. And then finally, folks, feel free to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, Bandido Talks. Head over to Rumble, use the scrolling black banner below to find all the details about how you can get over to Rumble. Subscribe here on YouTube, subscribe over on Rumble. We will be back tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Irish time for another live show. The live shows will keep on coming, folks. We're going to go Monday to Thursday this week, 4 p.m. on YouTube, Monday to Thursday, and then live over on Rumble. Straight after our show here on YouTube, we head over to Rumble, 6 p.m. We talk about different stuff over on Rumble. It's all US-based stories. So lots of live content coming your direction. Feel free to subscribe here on YouTube, over on Rumble. And with that, folks, that draws everything to its conclusion today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Irish time, here on YouTube. Until then, folks, enjoy the rest of your day. And it is over and out from the Bandido.